DUNE Messiah by Frank Herbert. The Emperor's Burden. The throne room of Arrakis was silent, save for the soft whisper of the desert wind against the grand windows. Paul Atreides, the young emperor, sat upon his throne, a look of deep contemplation etched upon his face. His sister Alia stood by his side, her eyes reflecting the weight of their shared destiny. "Brother," Alia began, her voice barely above a murmur, "the Fremen grow restless. They seek assurance that their Mahdi has not forgotten their plight." Paul's gaze remained fixed on the horizon where the dunes met the sky. "I have not forgotten," he replied. "But there are forces at play that would use our lineage for their own gain. We must be vigilant." Just then, the doors to the throne room swung open, and Chani, Paul's beloved, entered. Her presence brought a rare smile to Paul's face. "Chani," he greeted her warmly. "My love," Chani responded, approaching the throne. "I bring troubling news. The Bene Gesserit weave their plots around us, and I fear for our future." Paul stood, his prescient powers clouding his vision with flashes of possible futures. "I see the threads of their schemes," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "But we will not be ensnared. Our path is our own to choose." Alia interjected, "And what of hate? The Goolas' presence in our court is a reminder of our past, and yet he may hold the key to our future." Paul turned to face his sister, his eyes revealing the burden he carried. "Hate is both a memory and a mystery," he admitted. "We must tread carefully, for he is a blade that could cut both ways." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a messenger who bowed deeply before the Emperor. "Sire, the Guild sends word. They request an audience to discuss the spice." Paul exchanged a knowing look with Alia and Chani. "Let them come," he declared. "We will hear their words, but they will find that Muad'Dib is not so easily swayed." As the messenger departed, Paul took Chani's hand, and together they stepped onto the balcony overlooking the vast desert. "Arrakis is changing," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "And we must change with it, but no matter what the future holds, we will face it together." Chani nodded, her resolve as unyielding as the desert itself. "Together," she echoed. And so, amidst the swirling sands and the shifting tides of power, Paul Atreides, the Emperor of Arrakis, stood with his sister and his beloved, ready to forge a future of their own making, unbound by the expectations of prophecy and the manipulations of those who would seek to control destiny. The burden was great, but the will of Muad'Dib was greater still. The sisters struggled. In the heart of the desert planet Arrakis, Alia Atreides faced a restless crowd within the temple's sacred walls. Her deep blue eyes, a testament to the spice melange, sought out the faces before her. The chamber was filled with the scent of the sacred spice and whispers of prophecy. "What does the future hold for us, Alia, Oracle of Dune?" a voice called out, desperate yet hopeful. "Peace," Alia responded, her voice a steady force. "Peace will come to Arrakis, but not without cost. It will be born from the fires of change, a conflagration of political upheaval and the reshaping of alliances." The crowd murmured, their emotions a tangled web of relief and doubt. Alia's prophecy was enigmatic, yet they clung to her words. Stilgar, the Fremen Naib, emerged from the throne, his presence commanding attention. "Alia, you speak of peace, but there is a storm in your eyes. What weighs on you?" She faced Stilgar, her brother Paul's stalwart confidant. "I am caught between my duty and my conscience. The choices I make could either heal or fracture our world." Stilgar's expression softened. "You are Muad'Dib's sister," the desert's voice. "We trust in your wisdom." Alia's thoughts drifted to an earlier encounter with Duncan, Idaho. the man who dared to question her rule. "You cannot escape your nature," Duncan had challenged, his gaze unsettling her. "Your decisions shape not only the Empire but also your own being." His words had struck a chord, and now, as she addressed her people, she realized the truth in them. "I must honor my truth," she declared, "even if it means walking a path alone." The crowd watched, breaths held, as Amelia descended from the dais. Her future was a canvas of possibilities, but she would navigate it with the strength of her lineage and the aspirations of her people. Thus began the sisters' struggle, a journey of self-discovery and resolve that would test the Empire's very pillars and the heart of the woman destined to forge its future. The Goolas Arrival. The throne room of Arrakis was silent, save for the soft whisper of the desert wind against the grand windows. Beside him, Chani, his beloved, watched him with a mix of concern and admiration. The massive doors creaked open and Hate, the Ghola of Duncan, Idaho, stepped through with a measured gait and a commanding presence. "Not quite, my love, this is Hate," Paul said with a gentle smile as Chani looked on. "Emperor," Hate greeted, bowing respectfully. Paul gestured for him to approach. "You are welcome here, Hate. Your arrival brings many questions. And I hope to find answers, sire." "For both of us," Hate replied, standing tall. "Can you remember who you were?" Chani asked, studying his features. "Fragments, Lady Chani. Like dreams within a dream," Hate responded. "Dreams can be a guide," Paul murmured, contemplating the implications of Hate's words. "Stilgar, the Freeman leader, broke the silence. This Ghola is a tool of the Tleilaxu. Can we trust what he represents?" "We must look beyond what he represents," Paul replied, meeting Stilgar's gaze. "Hate is part of our present, and perhaps our future." Chani's hand brushed against Hate's. "Then let us hope that future is one we can shape together." Together, Hate echoed, a human spirit lingering within him. The promise of discovery, the challenge of trust, and the unyielding march of destiny continued in the heart of Arrakis. The web of deception. In the dimly lit chambers of the Arrakeen Palace, Paul Atreides, Emperor of the known universe, sat deep in thought. His sister Aelia paced restlessly, her eyes reflecting the turmoil within. "Paul, this invitation from the Fremen. It's unlike them to request secrecy," she said, her voice tinged with suspicion. Paul nodded, his mind racing with prescient visions. "Yes, and to ask for Chani to accompany me. It's a trap, Aelia." Chani, overhearing the conversation, interjected with a fierceness that belied her delicate frame. "A trap? By the Fremen? But why?" Before Paul could respond, a commotion at the door heralded the arrival of Stilgar, the loyal Freeman Nai. "Muad'Dib," he greeted, using Paul's Freeman title. "I've heard of this meeting. It reeks of deception." Paul rose, his stature commanding the room. "Stilgar, we must uncover the truth behind this. The stability of our empire depends on it." Alia's eyes narrowed. "But you've been taking the spice as prescribed." Chani's realization dawned like a desert sunrise. The spice. Someone has been tampering with it. Paul held her close, his voice steady. "No, my love. We will deal with the traitor, Chani." Stilgar stepped forward, his loyalty unwavering. "It's a move against you, Paul. Against us all." The Blind Emperor. In the dimly lit chamber of the Arrakeen Palace, Paul Atreides sat upon the throne, his serene expression belying the recent loss of his vision. His sister Aelia stood beside him, her protective gaze sweeping the room. The courtiers' whispers were a backdrop to the unfolding drama. "Brother," Alia's soft voice broke the silence. The people are anxious about your leadership. Paul smiled faintly, facing the assembly. Tell them my vision has never been clearer, he replied, his voice steady and confident. Alia conveyed his message, assuring the assembly of their emperor's unwavering wisdom and foresight. A young freeman boy, his steps uncertain, approached. Emperor Muad'Dib, he began. I need guidance. Paul extended a hand. Come, he encouraged. The boy, drawn by Paul's commanding presence, moved closer. We shall both learn to see beyond the physical, Paul assured him. The boy's face brightened with hope. Alia observed the exchange, her pride evident. Paul's leadership transcended mere governance. It was about empowering his people. The chamber's doors flew open as Stilgar, flanked by freeman warriors, entered. My lord, he declared, a betrayal has been uncovered. Paul remained composed. Present him, he ordered. Korba was brought forth, fear etched on his face. Muad'Dib, I acted for the Kizarat, he claimed. Paul's voice was firm. You've risked our people's safety, he said. Alia, the consequence? Death, Alia stated, pending proof. A trial will determine the truth, Paul decreed. As Korba was escorted out, Paul addressed Stilgar. Ensure our people's well-being, he instructed. Stilgar nodded. Your will be done. The chapter concluded with Paul, a figure of strength and justice, and Alia, his unwavering supporter, poised to confront future challenges. Under their leadership, the empire of Arrakis flourished, its people inspired by Muad'Dib's extraordinary vision. Note, the Kezarat is a religious body within the empire, responsible for spreading Muad'Dib's teachings and ensuring loyalty among the populace. Korba's actions, taken in the name of the Kaiserate, suggest a misguided attempt to protect or advance its interests. Visions of the future. In the chamber's quietude, Paul Atreides, now bereft of Chani's mortal coil, contemplated the intricate web of time. Duncan, he beckoned, his tone devoid of the sorrow that once laced his words. The future beckons with a myriad of paths, and we must tread carefully. Duncan Idaho, the Gola, stood resolute. Command me, my lord. Paul's prescient gaze pierced the veil of time. A new vision unfolds, Duncan. A figure emerges from the dunes, cloaked in mystery, promising a nexus of change. The Gola's eyes sharpened. An ally or a harbinger of peril? The desert wind whispers secrets, and with it comes a warning, Paul mused, his hand pausing over the throne's armrest. An omen carried by the wind foretells a tempest from within the sands, a challenge to our reign. Duncan's stance hardened, ready for the trials ahead. We shall meet it head-on as we have all others. Paul nodded, his resolve unwavering. Indeed. Let our story be one of willful destiny, sculpted not by prophecy, but by the strength of our choices. As they stood united, the distant hum of the desert wind grew ever more insistent, a prelude to the storm that awaited them in the world of Dune. The leap into darkness. The chamber was dimly lit, the only light coming from the soft glow of the spice lamps, casting long shadows across the room. Alia Atreides stood by the window, her gaze lost in the endless dunes that stretched beyond the palace walls. She turned as Duncan Idaho entered, his footsteps silent on the stone floor. Duncan, Alia's voice was a whisper, yet it carried the weight of unshed tears. I feel as if I'm standing on the edge of an abyss. Duncan approached her, his eyes reflecting a turmoil that matched her own. We all are, Alia. Nothing has been the same. You are stronger than you know, Duncan said, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You are not alone in this. A silence fell between them, filled with the unspoken understanding of shared grief and the burden of leadership. It was Duncan who broke the quietude. "Alia, I've made a decision," he said, his voice firm. "I will stand by you, no matter what challenges we must face." Alia turned to him, her eyes searching his. "Even if it means defying the Bene Gesserit? Even if it means facing uncertainty?" "Yes," Duncan replied, his decision resolute. "Because I believe in you, in the future you will build." For a moment, Alia was speechless. Then she stepped forward, closing the distance between them, and took Duncan's hands in hers. "Then let us face it together," she said, her voice steady now. "Let us forge a new path, for Arrakis, for the Empire." They stood there, united in their resolve, as the night deepened around them. Outside, the desert whispered secrets of the past and promises of the future. And within the walls of the palace, two souls prepared to face what comes next. Legacy of Muad'Dib. In the golden dunes of Arrakis, under the twin moons, the legacy of Muad'Dib, the once Emperor Paul Atreides, continued to shape the present. Alia reflected on the impact of Paul's choices, acknowledging the need to honor his foresight without dwelling on the past. He knew the weight of every decision, she remarked. Duncan Idaho, the Gola, emphasized the power of choice and change. "We are not bound by destiny," he asserted, highlighting the importance of forging a new path. As the night deepened, the essence of Muad'Dib's story, a lesson in courage and the power of choice, remained a guiding force for the people of Arrakis, steering them towards a hopeful future and new beginnings.